project is Blank Page Poetry, Words and Shadows. These rivers of truth have a long way yet.
Poetry.
Paints dotted lines down the middle.
Did you know South Carolina school children are my own?
A cloth that blocks the light.
For shotgun blast, then down to let it slide. See, I'm no duck.
The project is fascinating and beautiful.
And it's really important that you have it down because the idea is that you're free to give your body to further expression of what those words, the meaning and the power in those words.
It's made me think about poetry in a different way.
Putting more emotion behind reading the poem, not just simply giving it reading.
And they're about issues that are of sociological, cultural, political relevance to a community. So I arrive on scene basically in the same way that I arrived here, which is to find out what the story is.
Columbia has really blown me away in terms of the material we're working with and the passion of the people involved in the project. It's been fantastic.
They were not used to performing in a very dramatic kind of way.
It took me my whole life to put that poem together.
Poems are going to stand on their own with their own sounds and silence. And I'll be doing the same thing, but with musical instruments in between the poems.
My name is Worthy Evans. My poem is Trash.
This is a mess.
One reaches out as if to shake my hand, but he is so high on a cylinder of native granite that he will never touch.
We have literally asked them to open their souls, talk about their experiences, talk about very personal experiences.
Artist friend of mine say this before about sometimes I just wish people would move out of the way and let the artist speak.
I see faces like me that had to flee. Sisters, brothers, afraid for their families. What's the tea? We all see faces like me being killed in the streets for all to see. Makes me feel more like a target than a member of a community.
We also live in an example of how we can live in acceptance and tolerance of each other, really, fully, not in that play, make-believe way. Just FYI, in case something sounds honky, it might sound like they're talking for a little bit. Well, yeah, I know, right? But how we can really accept people for who we are. I see the evidence of that all around me with the artists that I work with all the time. And it makes me crazy to think that people don't see or understand or have examples of that kind of world.
And I'm here because same thing Ed says. Help is sometimes the difference between a smile and a long sigh. A sigh in a long line that has no end. While I remake friends with those who've been in the same clothes since the sky opened up.
A kind of lovely symmetry between what the language is doing in your ear and what the movements are doing in your eyes.
Focused on that festering flag, quick to take it down, move forward, move on. These aren't the same. After weeks of heat, it rained the day the governor said to take it down. Are we somehow different now? How would we know?
I think the main impetus for it is that I started thinking about cavemen and You know, they're not extinct. I'd like to think of myself as a sophisticated caveman, or maybe a domestic caveman. Always the long straightaway, always the cop, the stick, with the hand on top. If not the cop, the F-150 bent in the rear, the tractor, the blinding rain. And the thing is, you can't go slow on these roads. Can't ride with the windows down. They're not built for weekended travel. That's what curves are for.
And the shadow has really freed me in the sense where I don't think I would be doing this if I was on stage just with the audience just looking at me. The shadow it will help lead the poem, and it does it in a mysterious way, so I love it.
Hums Gullah Air to dead slaves, dead slaves.
It's inspired by my personal history, South Carolina history, and my experiences as an educator in South Carolina.
Minimally adequate is a standard we bear on our backs, where Pitchfork Ben and Dixiecrat Strom have monuments to their names. But the slaves who bricked the horseshoe at USC remain nameless, but not faceless, since their faces are my own. Okay, so then here. Okay.
January 21st, Tuesday morning coffee. He said, well, I'm glad that crap is over. If we can only get through next month. We work together, but he really doesn't know me. What do you mean? I asked. Well, I smiled. Did you know Christmas addicts, Dave the Potter, Frederick Douglass, the real McCoy?
And I just think it's part of our duty as artists to reflect our times, to reflect our experiences, and to say something about the place and time that we are in.
So all of a sudden, poetry has become the end-all, be-all for me, which is interesting. You know, you never know what your path of your career is going to bring you. So it's always good to be exposed to something new.
Yes, we, the word sharks of thoughts that can find no rest, of the colonials' undignified quest, of plantations vying for slaves, now guests, encroach upon these mansions of time-honored ways, with the force of rivers overflowing their bounds, unleashing a rising and transformative flood. These rivers of change have yet a long way, while we in their service claim yet another day. And so, Columbia, I give you blank page poetry, words and shadows. These rivers of truth have a long way